komunitas Indonesia. Jadi yang duduknya mungkin kurang enak boleh madep ke sini karena pembicaranya di sini ya. Kalau Bapak Ibu lihat logo ada 1, 2, 3, 4 ya. Proyek kita hari ini harus mengkampanyekan COVID booster. Mungkin Bapak Ibu pikir aduh telat, nggak apa-apa ya, tapi ini penting pengetahuan yang
Smallpox menurut sekali virus yang dia tidak mendalami karena alasannya sudah ada obat untuk smallpox.
So it's a very vaccination campaign. But these days, when we're introducing vaccinations, when I say that 10 to 15 years, the process is very long. It takes that length of time because they are heavily trialled amongst populations, and they go through 3 different phases of trials before they are even put forward for approval.
Jadi mengapa saya tadi bilang 10 sampai 15 tahun itu adalah proses yang lama karena harus dibuat dan dicoba untuk populasi masyarakat dan harus mengalami tiga tahap.
And that those are human trials. So those are 3 phases of human trials with more and more people that they are trialled on. And if at any point during those trials they fail for whatever reason, there may be illness, there may be
semuanya dapat solution tubuh kita sampai ke untuk waktu yang berapa panjang, tetapi ada beberapa 3 tahap tersebut adalah tahap bercoba dengan orang manusia. Kalau misalnya ada seperti pun kalau ada yang gagal seperti tidak penyakit, maka vaksinasi.
The older we get, the less effective our immune system becomes. Traditionally speaking, those phases of trials are so they take many years.
Usia adalah saat percobaan tersebut bisa menjadi 3 tahun karena termasuk salah satu faktor untuk dicoba untuk vaksinasi.
And then once they've passed those trials and they've found that they've been successful and the vaccinations are doing what they're intended for, they then have to go in Australia to the TGA, Therapeutic Goods Administration.
Jadi kalau vaksinasi tersebut lolos dan sukses, maka akan didaftarkan dengan TGA.
And the TGA have a very rigorous approval process. They do not just approve just anything. So there is a time period spent with them assessing the proposals and then finally approving them.
Jadi proses untuk didaftarkan dengan TGA juga proses yang cukup kompleks. Mereka harus melalui beberapa assessment dan didaftarkan.
And then at that point, vaccine production and manufacturing happens, and that again takes time before it's available on the market. So in all of that adds up to between 10 to 15 years.
Setelah mereka juga didaftarkan dan proses untuk produksi dilakukan, itu juga akan mengambil waktu banyak, waktu yang lama. Jadi secara total bisa sampai 10 sampai 15 tahun.
But with the COVID pandemic, that changed the landscape. So while we still go through all of those processes, a few things happened to make it go faster. It wasn't rushed through, it was streamlined.
Jadi dengan adanya pandemi COVID, prosesnya itu berganti sedikit karena adanya limitation waktu yang sangat terbatas. Jadi proses tersebut bukannya dilewat, tapi diperefektif.
The other thing that we had was a SARS pandemic a few years ago, probably about 10 years prior to this, maybe longer, so I don't remember the date, but the sudden adult respiratory syndrome outbreak that happened in China, which is a coronavirus virus. And so we had already been developing coronavirus vaccines for many years before this pandemic.
Jadi beberapa tahun lalu, kira-kira 10 tahun yang lalu, ada pandemi SARS yang ada yang mengganggu pernafasan di orang dewasa di China. Sejak itu, beberapa vaksinasi sudah dibuat untuk SARS.
And the other thing that the COVID pandemic brought that previously manufacturers struggled with was funding. There was, with this worldwide issue, countries were throwing money at the development of these vaccines. Funds were very freely available, which isn't something that always happens with other vaccines.
Dengan adanya pandemi yang sebelumnya ada kebatasan atau limitasi dengan adanya uang atau funding dan dana untuk membuat vaksinasi tersebut. Namun dengan adanya COVID-19, funding atau support dana tersebut menjadi terbuka untuk banyak produsen.
And with the streamlining of the process, instead of traditionally doing it one step at a time, and in between each step having to raise the funds to do it, having to recruit the people for it, with the COVID vaccines, those steps were done concurrently.
Dengan adanya proses streamlining atau efisiensi dari proses tersebut, jadi prosesnya bukan dilakukan satu-satu, tetapi beberapa proses dilakukan sekaligus.
And because of the sheer volume of people that were contracting COVID, we had plenty of participants to trial the vaccines on. So in countries like Africa and South America, where there were hundreds of thousands of millions of cases, it was very easy to recruit participants. Whereas with other vaccines, as I've said, it can take many years. It's very easy to get participants.
Dengan banyaknya orang yang kena COVID, jadi banyak orang yang bisa berpartisipasi di percobaan tersebut. Contohnya seperti orang-orang di Afrika atau di Amerika Selatan, dan itu lebih gampang untuk mereka untuk berpartisipasi dalam trial tersebut, percobaan tersebut.
And the TGA also streamlined their approval processes. So again, they didn't rush anything through, but they made things more effective and efficient, and that was how we were able to get these vaccines out a lot faster.
Jadi dengan TGA mempergampangkan atau mempermudahkan atau memperpendek proses untuk persetujuan tersebut, proses tersebut menjadi lebih efektif juga lebih efisien.
And so we've been able to get the process down to around 2 years for approval of a vaccine, and which is much better. And however, it's just important to emphasise we haven't skipped any steps.
Jadi proses tersebut bisa diperpendek jadi 2-3 tahun.
So the vaccines in themselves, they're very safe. Vaccines in general are very, very safe. That's not to say that there aren't any risks with vaccines. All medications come with a level of risk.
Jadi vaksinasi COVID-19 itu sangat-sangat aman, tetapi dengan adanya vaksinasi pasti ada risiko.
But the risk is much, much lower than the risk from the disease itself.
Jadi resiko-resiko tersebut jauh lebih sedikit dibandingkan dengan resiko kalau Bapak Ibu kena COVID-19.
So generally, what you will experience, not just after a COVID vaccine, but after any vaccination, is definitely almost always a sore arm from the needle, from the injection. That's very normal.
Jadi secara umum dari COVID-19, bukan hanya dengan vaksinasi COVID-19, but vaksinasi yang lain. Salah satu resikonya adalah dari jalurnya tersebut.
And a lot of people experience mild type illnesses, so fevers, chills, muscle aches and pains.
Jadi beberapa implikasinya seperti sakit di demam atau sakit di kulit.
Yeah, and that's normal after vaccine. Many of you would have had your kids that have had vaccinations, or you've had other vaccinations, and you've experienced that yourself. It's a normal response. It's your immune system doing its job, making those antibodies, and it passes after a couple of days.
Jadi implikasi tersebut sangat normal. Bapak ibu mungkin melihatnya di anak-anak atau bapak ibu sendiri merasakannya. Jadi badan itu sebenarnya itu antibodi badan bapak ibu mampu melawan vaksinasi atau virus tersebut dengan antibodi badan sendiri.
But all vaccines do come with a very small risk of severe reaction. One of the most common severe reactions is anaphylaxis or a very severe allergy to the vaccine.
Jadi resiko-resiko tersebut bisa juga sedikit, bisa juga agak besar. Salah satunya yang implikasi besar adalah anaphylaxis atau anaphylaxis that would be
Very severe reaction.
itu salah satu implikasi yang besar sekali.
And you would have heard in the media about with different vaccines, with the AstraZeneca, there was the clotting problem. With the mRNA vaccines, it was the cardiac, the heart inflammation.
Jadi mungkin vaksinasi tersebut adalah salah satu vaksinasi dari mRNA atau dari pembuluh darah macam itu.
And that is why we very carefully survey. We keep an eye on these vaccines and what they're doing. And often in the smaller clinical trials, these things don't get picked up because they're so rare that they just don't see them in the trials. So we keep watching them once they're out there.
Jadi kita menangkap semua informasi sesuai dengan survei dengan hati-hati. Banyak kejadian-kejadian yang mungkin tidak kita tangkap atau kita dapatkan dari trial atau percobaan yang ada karena resikonya sangat kecil.
And but it's really important to remember that you have to consider your risk from the disease and your risk from the vaccine. So the risk for any of these more severe reactions minute. You're talking, depending on what the problem is, less than 1 in 100,000, often less than 1 in 1 million chances.
Jadi perlu diingat resiko dari vaksinasinya tersebut jauh lebih kecil dibandingkan dengan resiko dari penyakit tersebut. Jadi ada lebih sedikit 100,000 lebih sedikit dibandingkan dengan 1 juta.
But the risk from these to contract these same issues from the disease are far higher. So with the mRNA vaccine, the cardiac inflammation will happen with the disease in a much higher rate than you do from the vaccine.
Jadi resiko dari penyakitnya tersebut jauh lebih tinggi. Salah satu contohnya adalah pembengkakan di jantung akan jauh lebih besar dibandingkan dengan orang yang tidak mengambil vaksinasi.
Okay, so I just wanted to move on to COVID itself, just to have a quick recap, and I think it's important to remember how big an impact this has had on the world.
Jadi saya akan membagikan sedikit informasi tentang COVID-19 dan kasus-kasusnya.
So you'll remember we had our first case in Australia in January 2020, and to date we've had over 10 million cases of autism and over 15,000 deaths.
Kasus pertama di Australia ada di bulan Januari tahun 2020. Saat ini di Australia ada 10
juta.
Okay, is it working? Wasn't working before. Ada lebih dari 10 juta kasus dengan 50.000 orang meninggal.
And most of those cases and most of those deaths have occurred this year only.
Dan kebanyakan dari kasus itu terjadi tahun ini.
Worldwide, we've seen over 617 million cases and over 6.5 million deaths.
Jadi secara umum di dunia ada 617 miliar kasus dan 6.500.000 kasus yang meninggal.
So it's had a huge impact.
Jadi ada implikasi yang besar.
So this graph is just shows you the case numbers, the number of infections that we see by age, and you can see that the biggest groups likely to contract and transmit COVID are in the 20 to 50 years of age group.
Di gambar ini bisa dilihat tentang kasus-kasus COVID-19 dari grup umur dan juga jenis kelamin. Bisa dilihat ini dari umur yang paling resiko kena COVID dari umur 20 sampai 50 tahun.
So they're much more likely to be out socialising, working, travelling, and that's why they're more likely to get it and they're more likely to pass it on.
Jadi itu dikarenakan karena mereka pergi untuk aktivitas sosial atau bekerja atau bepergian, jadi mereka bisa kena dan juga bisa memberikannya ke orang lain.
This graph represents the age groups who are more likely to die from COVID, and you can see that by far the most vulnerable members of the population are those aged 70 and over.
Gambar ini memberikan informasi kepada kita grup usia yang dengan kasus yang banyak kasus kematian dari COVID-19, COVID-19. Jadi bisa dilihat dari umur 70 tahun ke atas.
And you'll remember that immunity from the vaccines and your immune system effectiveness gets less as you get older.
Jadi perlu juga diingat kekebalan tubuh kita atau imunitas dari vaksinasi juga berkurang sesuai dengan umur kita bertambah.
So the vaccines don't work as well on this age group. So it's really, really important that we're vaccinating everyone to protect them. The more people that are vaccinated, the more the vulnerable are protected.
Jadi perlu diingat juga dari vaksinasi tersebut juga berkurang keefektifannya. Jadi bisa dianjurkan semakin banyak orang vaksinasi semakin efektif.
Okay, so it's important to get your booster shot. I don't know, when we talk about vaccinations, we refer to primary vaccination. So if you've had your primary course, so those are your first 2 vaccines, it's really important to get that booster dose.
Jadi kita mau bicara tentang vaksinasi tambahan atau booster shot. Kita kalau Bapak Ibu sudah dapat vaksinasi Bapak Ibu pertama atau yang primer, sangat dianjurkan untuk dapat vaksinasi tambahan.
So in Australia, booster shots are available to anyone aged over 16.
Di Australia, vaksinasi tambahan tersebut tersedia untuk orang di atas 16 tahun ke atas.
So it's really important that you get up to date. Those that are 5 years and older, can get their primary course, so their first 2 vaccines, and then from 16 years of age you get a booster.
Jadi penting sekali untuk kita mendapatkan vaksinasi tersebut. Untuk orang anak 5 tahun ke atas untuk paling tidak mendapatkan vaksinasi primer atau utama tersebut, dan umur 16 tahun ke atas untuk mendapatkan vaksinasi tambahan.
If you've had your primary course, your first 2 doses, you can get a booster shot 3 months after.
Kalau Bapak Ibu sudah mendapatkan dua vaksinasi pertama, Bapak Ibu bisa mendapatkan vaksinasi tambahan 3 bulan setelahnya.
So how many vaccines should you have had? Depends on how old you are. If you're 5 to 15, 2 doses. So that's the primary course. We don't do boosters in that age group, so they should have had 2 doses of the vaccine.
Jadi berapa banyak vaksinasi yang harus kita dapatkan tergantung dengan umur. Jadi untuk anak 5 sampai 15 hanya perlu 2 vaksinasi.
If you're aged 16 to 29, then you should have had 3 doses. That's your primary course of 2 plus 1 booster.
Jadi kalau untuk orang umur 16 sampai 29 tahun 3 vaksinasi. Jadi itu 2 vaksinasi utama dan 1 vaksinasi tambahan.
And if you're aged 30 to 49, you should have had 3. Those are your primary course plus 1 booster, and you are also able to get an additional booster. It's available for you, but it's not currently seen as highly important.
Jadi kalau umur 30 sampai 49 dapat 3, itu 2 vaksinasi tambahan dengan 1 booster. Bisa mendapatkan 1 booster lagi atau 1 tambahan lagi, tetapi tidak terlalu penting.
And if you're over 50, you should have had 4 doses. You should have had your primary course plus 2 boosters.
Jadi untuk orang yang di atas 50 tahun harus dapat 4, itu 2 vaksinasi utama dan 2 tambahan.
And it's important to note if you have certain medical conditions, so if you have a problem with your immune system, and there's a big list of medical conditions that put you at an increased risk of complications from COVID, there are extra vaccines to that. So these are just for healthy people.
Jadi perlu dicatat juga atau diperhatikan, itu semua tergantung dengan kesehatan Bapak Ibu. Jadi kalau itu tergantung dengan kekebalan tubuh. Jadi kalau misalnya ada yang kekebalan tubuhnya berkurang atau kurang sehat, bisa pergi ke dokter dan minta ekstra vaksinasi dan dianjurkan ekstra vaksinasi.
Can you still get COVID if you've had vaccination? Absolutely, yes, you can. Not all vaccines are foolproof, and COVID is one of those. They provide, they do stop COVID in a certain number of people.
Apakah kita masih bisa mendapatkan COVID-19 kalau sudah divaksinasi? Jawabannya adalah iya, karena vaksinasi banyak macam dari COVID-19 itu.
However, some people it doesn't stop the disease, but what it does do is make the severity much less.
Untuk beberapa orang, vaksinasi COVID-19 itu bisa menyetop penyakitnya, tetapi juga bisa mengurangi implikasi dari COVID-nya.
So in the vaccinated, so those who have received the vaccine, if they get COVID, they're less likely to be hospitalised and less likely to die from it.
Jadi kalaupun kita mendapatkan COVID, dari ada lebih sedikit kita untuk sakit. Sorry, what was that? The hospital and okay, lebih sedikit kita untuk pergi ke rumah sakit dan juga untuk meninggal.
So why do you need boosters? That's going back to what we talked about before with the waning immunity, with your immune system as you get older not being as effective. and with the vaccines not being as effective as providing us long-lasting protection.
Kenapa kita mau memerlukan vaksinasi tambahan tersebut? Seperti yang saya sampaikan sebelumnya, itu juga tergantung dari kekebalan tubuh kita. Karena menjadi tidak se-efektif sebelumnya, vaksinasi tersebut juga menjadi tidak se-efektif sebelumnya.
So boosters will increase your protection.
Vaksinasi tambahan tersebut meningkatkan proteksi untuk badan Bapak Ibu.
It's very important for pregnant women to be protected against COVID-19. Pregnant women are at a much higher risk of complications from COVID, so it is a safe and effective vaccine.
Jadi sangat penting untuk ibu hamil untuk ibu hamil yang terkena resiko COVID-19 memiliki resiko yang lebih tinggi menjadi sakit parah dari virus tersebut.
And it's recommended for pregnant women at any stage.
Dan ini direkomendasikan untuk ibu hamil di semua tahap.
Pregnant and breastfeeding.
What's that again, sorry?
Pregnant and breastfeeding.
Oh, selama dalam hamil dan menyusui.
So a lot of people now have had COVID. So how long? Firstly, if you've had COVID, should you get vaccinated? Absolutely yes.
Sekarang banyak orang yang sudah kena COVID. Apakah Bapak Ibu perlu divaksinasi COVID? Sudah pasti iya.
How long should you wait if you've had COVID to get the vaccine?
Berapa lama Bapak Ibu harus menunggu jika Bapak Ibu sudah kena COVID?
And the answer is 3 months.
Jawabannya adalah 3 bulan.
Okay, so that's COVID. I might just stop and see if there's anyone that has any questions before we move on to influenza.
Jadi hanya itu untuk saat ini. Apakah Bapak Ibu ada pertanyaan sebelum kita ke topik selanjutnya?
That's good. Maybe I've answered them all already. Okay, so moving on to influenza. Just a quick recap about that. That's caused by a virus.
Selanjutnya adalah berbicara dengan influenza, atau bahasa Indonesia juga influenza, disebabkan oleh virus.
And we see it the most in the very young, so under 5s, and the very old, those over 80.
Jadi ini mempengaruhi banyak orang di bawah 5 tahun dan di atas 50 tahun.
But we see significant illness and deaths in those over 50.
Ini bisa menyebabkan banyak sakit dan kematian untuk orang di atas 50 tahun.
Australia's influenza season is from March until October, so we're just about to come out of the end of that season.
Jadi musim kita terkena banyak influenza kira-kira bulan Maret sampai bulan Oktober.
However, we do see influenza all year round. So even if you haven't had a vaccine, an influenza vaccine yet, it is an important protection to have annually.
Bahkan influenza juga terjadi seluruh tahun. Jadi kalau Bapak Ibu belum dapat imunisasi atau vaksinasi influenza, sangat dianjurkan untuk mendapatkannya setiap tahun.
Again, in pregnancy, pregnant women are far more likely to have complications if they contract influenza, so it's very important that they receive an influenza vaccine during pregnancy.
Juga dari banyak untuk orang yang sedang mengalami kehamilan atau sedang masa hamil, jika kena influenza komplikasinya juga menjadi sangat besar, jadi sangat dianjurkan untuk mendapatkan vaksinasi.
So it can be life-threatening for the mum and for the baby.
Jadi bisa sangat membahayakan untuk ibunya atau bayi yang sedang dikandung.
So why do we vaccinate pregnant women? Well, firstly, we're protecting the mothers from influenza.
Kenapa kita memvaksinasi ibu hamil? Pertama untuk melindungi ibunya dari influenza.
and we're also protecting the babies. So in the babies, when they're inside mum, will get mum's antibodies, and that provides protection for the baby after they're born.
Jadi biasanya untuk melindungi bayi yang di dalam kandungannya, karena bayi yang dikandung juga akan mendapatkan vaksinasi dari yang diambil ibunya.
The influenza vaccination is only given from 6 months of age, so kids under 6 months of age are more likely to be hospitalised from influenza. So getting that protection from mum is very important.
Jadi untuk influenza juga dapat menyerang anak, paling banyak untuk anak di bawah 6 bulan. Jadi ini sangat penting untuk memvaksinasi ibu hamil sewaktu ibunya hamil.
And it's thought that it's been estimated that it reduces the risk of hospitalisation and harm from influenza by about 50% in kids under 6 months of age.
Jadi kira-kira ini menurunkan resikonya sebagai 50% resiko untuk anak bayi yang mendapatkan influenza.
So who should get the vaccine? Basically everybody over 6 months of age.
Jadi siapa yang harus mendapatkan vaksinasi? Untuk semua orang di atas 6 bulan ke atas.
It's especially important for under 5 years old and for over 65 years old.
Ini sangat penting untuk anak di bawah 5 tahun dan di atas 65 tahun.
Kids under 5 are more likely to contract and transmit influenza.
Jadi anak-anak di bawah 5 tahun paling banyak resikonya atau paling besar resikonya untuk mendapatkan influenza dan menyebarkan influenza.
And like the elderly, they're more likely to be hospitalised from it.
Dan untuk orang yang lebih tua juga ada semakin besar resikonya untuk masuk rumah sakit.
So in Australia, we provide it for free for only certain groups. So those are for the kids under 5, for those over 65.
Jadi di Australia ada gratis vaksinasi influenza gratis untuk anak di bawah 5 tahun dan orang di atas 65 tahun.
For pregnant women, for Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islanders,
untuk ibu yang sedang hamil dan untuk orang Australia dari Aborigin and Torres Strait Islander.
And for anyone over 6 months of age who has a medical condition that will put them at risk.
Dan untuk semua orang di atas 6 bulan ke atas yang ada kondisi kesehatan berbeda.
But remember, it's never too late to get vaccinated. If you haven't had the COVID vaccine yet, if you haven't had your influenza vaccine yet, I encourage you to go and get it. It's never too late.
Perlu diingat, tidak pernah telat untuk mendapatkan vaksinasi. Jadi kalau Bapak Ibu belum mendapatkan vaksinasi untuk COVID-19 atau influenza, sangat dianjurkan.
So that is basically my talk today. I know that the topic also mentioned vaccines for kids, but in Australia we vaccinate for up to 4 years of age, and then the next vaccines we do are in adolescents.
Jadi itu aja untuk hari ini. Kita juga perlu diketahui ada banyak vaksinasi untuk anak-anak di bawah 44 tahun yang perlu diberikan, namun juga dan selanjutnya vaksinasi selanjutnya adalah untuk anak-anak yang sudah untuk orang dewasa.
However, if there are kids that are aged over 4 and haven't had their vaccines, we catch up vaccinations up until the 19th birthday. So if you know anyone that isn't sure about getting vaccinated, it's really important to go and have a chat to your GP and see what they recommend for you. Okay, so has anyone got any questions?
Jadi untuk anak-anak yang di atas
From any registered provider, so most GP practices, and there are also government clinics that do vaccinations.
Jadi di tempat-tempat yang terdaftar seperti dokter atau klinik-klinik yang terdaftar di pemerintah.
And the Australian government has a vaccination clinic locator, which you can find on the internet.
Juga ada di website tulisannya vaccination clinic, bisa dicek di internet juga. Jadi bisa dicek di vaccination clinic. Yeah, vaccination clinic located di website.
Nanti kita belajar gimana caranya.
Iya, dicari aja nanti.
Ada pertanyaan lagi?
Once you should take.
Well, any of those vaccines are okay for you to have. There's no standard.
Kena. Saya mau ambil booster yang kedua. Kapan boleh saya ambil lagi?
Itu 2019.
Tahun ini.
Okay.
Kena COVID-19.
So she got COVID in July this year. When can she get her booster?
So what are we in now? You could get your booster now, and you should get your booster now, because even having had COVID doesn't protect you from COVID again. So you can get it now 3 months after infection.
Jadi tante bisa ambil sekarang 3 bulan sejak bulan Juli. Apa interpret yang atas walk jogging? Ya, jadi bisa penting sekali untuk tante.
It has to be minimum of 3 months. Yeah.
Selain influenza, vaksin every year
Saya mau tanya, heran dapat COVID-19 ya, berapa hari bisa sembuh, nggak bisa tularan ke orang lain?
Jadi kapan COVID-nya Om?
Dapat penyakit COVID-19 biasanya mesti berapa lama?
sakitnya.
Ya, sakitnya nggak bisa tular ke orang lain.
Oh, okay. His question is, how long? Okay, so when you get COVID-19, how long until then he get? How long is the duration for him to get sick, to be sick, and then the time or the duration for him not to spread it to others?
It depends.
Tergantung.
Yeah, so generally speaking, they say while you're symptomatic, so while you're coughing, you're still spreading, and but that's not a hard and fast rule. It depends. But after the acute illness has passed, then you wouldn't be spreading it. We still isolate. Well, we've dropped the isolation.
Secara umum katanya itu tergantung dari orang masing-masing. Kalau masih ada simptomnya atau masih ada gejalanya seperti batuk itu masih menular. Tapi juga katanya kalau dalam masih masalah akut juga masih menular. Tapi kalau lewat masa akutnya udah nggak menular.
So while it's not mandatory to isolate anymore, you are still infectious for at least 7 days, and you should avoid contact with other people.
7 days, you said? Well, sekarang walaupun sudah tidak isolasi di rumah, sudah tidak diharuskan, tetapi sangat dianjurkan untuk tetap isolasi di rumah selama 7 hari paling tidak.
Okay. If we got the vaccine for the influenza every year, right? Every year. But what happened to the vaccine of the COVID? How often that we have to go? Say like the first, second, and the third, and the fourth. How often that we have to get the vaccine to be immunized?
Pertanyaannya, kalau kita untuk vaksinasi influenza itu kan setiap tahun. Nah, kalau untuk COVID-19 vaksinasinya harus bagaimana? Vaksinasinya sudah berganti-ganti. Jadi begitu ada vaksinasi yang baru juga akan diberitahukan frekuensinya. Jadi vaksinasi baru juga punya vaksinasi baru juga ada beda-beda waktu tenggat waktunya juga.
So currently there is no advice beyond for the over 50s for the 4 doses. So once you've had those 4 doses, currently that's considered enough.
Jadi saat ini dengan vaksinasi yang saat ini ada di pasaran, untuk usia 50 tahun ke atas 4 vaksinasi cukup.
But advice will change, new vaccines will come out, and I would put money on this not being the last time I receive a COVID vaccine. Advice changes, new vaccines come out. I think we'll all be getting more COVID vaccines.
Okay. Jadi untuk secara dengan adanya vaksinasi yang mungkin akan datang di masa depan, nasihat yang akan diberikan juga akan berbeda. Jadi saat ini ya untuk umur 50 tahun 4 vaksinasi.
And it may eventually become an annual thing.
Dan mungkin akan seperti setiap tahun harus vaksinasi.
Yes.
Vaksin barunya itu maksudnya kayak apa?
What does new vaccines look like? The new potential vaccine or advice or
There's loads of new vaccines being studied. So I'm not really up on what's coming through. I'm good on what's here and what we're using here and now. There's also, I didn't mention before, but there's the Novavax vaccine, which is available now, and that is also an option for boostering.
Saya tidak terlalu tahu dengan apa yang sedang dipelajari sedang dicoba saat ini tentang vaksinasi yang baru, tetapi itu akan sesuai dengan nasihat yang akan diberikan komunitas juga akan berubah sesuai dengan vaksinasi yang akan ada. Saat ini juga ada vaksinasi COVID-19 namanya Novak yang available, yang juga tersedia di komunitas, bisa diambil untuk booster atau vaksinasi tambahan.
And all of those vaccines are available in Australia for primary courses and for boostering. But as to what's coming, I'm waiting eagerly to hear.
Jadi semua vaksinasi tersebut juga bisa sama Anda juga tambahan. Saya tidak terlalu tahu untuk vaksinasi apa yang akan datang, juga ingin tahu.
Ada lagi?
Where can I get my booster shots?
So you've had the 4 shot. So when did you have your 3rd shot?
Or when can she get? Where can she get her booster shots?
From any registered provider. So most GP practices, and there are also government clinics that do vaccinations.
Jadi di tempat-tempat yang terdaftar seperti dokter atau klinik-klinik yang terdaftar di pemerintah.
And the Australian government has a vaccination clinic locator, which you can find on the internet.
Juga ada di website tulisannya vaccination clinic, bisa dicek di internet juga. Jadi bisa dicek di vaccination clinic.
Locator.
Yeah, vaccination clinic located di website.
Nanti kita belajar di mana caranya.
Iya, dicari aja nanti.
Ada pertanyaan lagi?
I forgot to mention chemists also are pharmacists. Registered, not all of them do, but some pharmacists you can also get the vaccination from.
Jadi ada beberapa apotek yang juga memberikan vaksinasi.
Thank you very much.
Terima kasih.